Hey everybody, one thing I've been teaching lately when someone starts out and they get a hammock is that there's a little bit of learning curve to them, especially when you go hammock camping. The first thing you do when you get a hammock, you need to learn how to lie in it asymmetrical, diagonal, to find that sweet spot. Now after you have accomplished that, now it's time to sleep overnight. What most people will do, they'll get a sleeping bag with no insulation underneath them, they'll put it in the hammock and sleep in that like a tent. They'll wake up shortly after their slumber because they are cold. Not cold on top, but cold on the bottom. And then they'll come to the conclusion, sadly, that hammock camping is not for them, not realizing what just happened. The reason hammocks stay so cool is that they are suspended in the open while circulating air robs heat all around, especially underneath you. This is beneficial during the summertime, but lousy during the cold temperatures. So what you need is some type of insulation underneath you. In this episode, we're going to look at inexpensive ways to stay warm in the hammock for someone that's just starting out and they don't want to spend a lot of money to see if this hammock camping is for them instead of using a tent. When it comes to insulation underneath you, the underquilt works the best. But they can be very expensive. There's other ways that are less expensive that you can use, like a wool blanket, or sheepskin, or reflectic. But the two most popular ways are either a closed foam mat or an inflatable sleeping pad. And the hammocks that work best for these are the double layers, which have openings which you can slide the pad between the two layers. And this will keep the pads from moving around inside between the two fabrics. You can find them made in some gathered end and bridge hammocks. When using this type of insulation, the bridge hammock works the best, as far as shifting around on you. But in this episode, we're going to look at people starting out. And in most cases, they're going to have a single layer gathered end. And before we see how these two types of insulation is used in a hammock, first we have to look at the pros and cons of each. The inflatable sleeping pads are warmer in most cases than the closed foam pads, which has an R value of about 2. Where an inflatable sleeping pad may have an R value up to 5 or even more. And they tend to be a little bit easier to put into the hammock. But they take a lot more time and effort to set up. Hence the name inflatable. They tend to work better for side sleepers, but the negative is the cost. The lighter, the more packable, the warmer, the higher an R value. Now those can cost you up to $200. With that cost, you might as well get an underquilt. Now for the closed foam pads. They're much less expensive compared to the inflatable pads, and they tend to be a little more comfortable for the back sleepers. They require virtually no effort to set up, but keeping some of them unrolled can be a pain. Not only are they less expensive, but very durable. They will outlive those inflatable pads by years. But a major problem with the closed foam mat is the condensation between you and the pad. I think that takes care of the pros and cons, but now for the sleeping bag. Down works better than synthetic, but it costs more. And I believe the mummy bags are better than the rectangular bags, mostly because they're lighter and more packable. But any type of sleeping bag is going to work, as long as the temperature rating matches the temperature you're going to be using it in. Once you have your hammock set up, you take your inflatable sleeping pad or closed foam mat and lay it asymmetrical in your hammock. Now when you're using an inflatable sleeping pad, you're going to take it hammock camping, but the temperatures are going to be a little colder than you would like. You're afraid there's not going to be enough insulation underneath you. You can use a closed foam pad also with it. But a big mistake people make is they will take it and put it underneath the inflatable sleeping pad and they'll end up getting cold. what you want to do, instead of put it underneath the inflatable pad, put it on top of it, and this will keep you warm. Now this will work much better than having it underneath. Then you take your sleeping bag and lay it over the pad. Then you open it up, then climb in, and zip up. Now another tip I'd like to share with you for the people that are using those closed foam mats, and for people that are larger, broader shoulders, or if you want a little more protection, what you do is you get another closed foam mat. You can use a wool blanket, even reflectic, and you put it in the shoulder area. Now I've taken this closed foam mat, which is on the thick side, down to 38 degrees 2 Celsius, and I was warm. And you put this extra closed foam pad or reflectic on here, and that will really help out. When you want to try hammock camping, you don't want to spend a lot of money, this is the way to go. Some people stand up and put the sleeping bag on outside the hammock and then get in. When using both of these methods and trying to get on the pad without it shifting around can be challenging. When using a mummy bag and a gather-in hammock where the material conforms around your body, now with the tighter fit, which means restricted movement, and those of you that struggle being a little claustrophobic, this can be a major problem. This sleeping bag feels like I have a boa constrictor around me, squeezing me to death. There's gotta be a better way. Come on, man. Yes, there is a better way that's a little more efficient and a lot more comfortable. So again, you'll want to have that closed foam mat or that inflatable sleeping pad asymmetrical diagonally in the hammock. This time, you unzip your sleeping bag till there's around 18 inches, 45 centimeters from the foot end up to create a foot box. Then flip the sleeping bag upside down. But now this time when you get in the hammock, push that sleeping bag off to the side. Then get yourself situated evenly on the pad. Then lift your leg up and slide your feet into that foot box that you created. Then drape the rest of the sleeping bag over the top of you. When you get cold, you just tuck the sides in. Now with no hood over my head, what you want to use is a balaclava or a hat, and that's what you would sleep in to keep your head warm. Now when I feel claustrophobic, I can loosen this up. I have all the room in the world. Look at this. Oh, who in their right mind would do it the other way? This is the way to go. Time for another nap. Now I'm going to have about this much underneath me that's not going to be covered, but I'll have the closed foam mat to insulate me. I don't need that material underneath me. When I lie on it, it squishes it down and it provides no insulation anyways. This way, I slide it up me, and then what you want to do is you tuck the material underneath you, but over the top of the mat. This way I can move around. I have a lot of freedom. And when I get hot, I can regulate the heat and cool down even more. And then when I get cold, I can put it over the top of me. And when I get really cold, I start tucking again. Now this is the way to go with a sleeping bag and a hammock. If you haven't tried it and you're using a sleeping bag, I highly recommend that you flip it upside down with it zipped down to 18 inches to create a foot box, and you are going to love it. Good little tip. As a matter of fact, it's a great tip. You will love it. Now that's a much better way to sleep in a hammock. Well, this ends this episode. If you like this video, please hit that like button down below. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button down below and that little bell icon over on the side there, and that'll notify you when the next episode comes out. And if I missed anything you'd like to add, any questions or comments, please write them down below. I love to hear from you. This is the Marine. Thank you for watching, and God bless.
Appalachian sunrise meets my skin. Even with my eyes still closed, I can feel it coming in. Golden, golden, I'll follow only golden, 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 golden things.
It's got to be 80 degrees right now, 27 Celsius. I'm sweating. I hope you appreciate this.